All right, good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Education special meeting notice via Zoom, March 26, 2024 at 6:10 p.m. If you can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please do so. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the
To the
republic
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
Perfect. Thank you guys all for getting on tonight. No, it's not one of our scheduled, but definitely something that we need to do. At this time, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by John.
Second.
Second by Linda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Abstained? Right, motion passes. At this time, since we are not in person, we won't have any in-person public comment, but do we have any remote public comment tonight? If you are online and would like to speak, please raise your hand. And if you're having a hard time raising your hand, just feel free to unmute so that we can recognize you. Okay, I have Roger. I'm going to press allow to talk. If you could unmute, you could go ahead, Roger.
How's that? Can you hear me now, Lindsay?
Perfect. Yep, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. The newsletter from the Democrats came out yesterday, and it was very interesting to talk about the configuration of the schools. It's the first I've heard since I went to the gatherings you had at Memorial School that it was decided on, and that's what the vote is about tonight. So I'm a little disappointed the public has not had a chance to weigh in, other than the school community, on what you're planning to vote on tonight. I would really suggest that it gets tabled until you reach out to the community and let us all know what's going on and get approval before you move forward and spend more money. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. And we'll try to address some of that in this next part as well. Okay, number 4, discussion and possible vote to approve the facility planning design for operation of 3 schools in Regional School District 13. So we have this meeting tonight after our joint session with the building committee, where there was a unanimous consensus on option C1A, which is the renovate unoccupied site for Memorial. At this time, if it's okay with Kim, I wanted to ask Kim if she would go over C1A, very quickly, and also the process for the grant, and the timeline for what can happen between now and when we'd go to referendum.
Sure, thank you. Okay, so option C1A, after many renditions, is the renovate is new at Memorial. So it would involve no demolition of Memorial at all. It would just be adding onto that and renovating what the state calls as new. It would involve adding a 2-story building to the rear of the existing building with also some other corridors. Athletic fields, pickleball courts, things like that will still remain on site. There will be increased parking. Again, this rendition that we've seen in the presentation, which is also on the website, is really just a high-level conceptual design done so that a pricing structure can be figured, because every grant application needs to come with a price tag, estimated cost. And it's also done for educational specifications, which are just documents that we are required to submit with our grant application, just kind of stating what the project is and what the intent of the project is. So without that, the architects couldn't move forward to the next stage of doing the educational specifications and getting the grant application into the state. So why you will see a design or an idea in the presentation of what C1A would look like. That doesn't mean that's going to be the ultimate design, because things can still be moved and added and changed. Like I said, it's to get the pricing square footage so that we can apply for the grant. So I just don't want people to think that this is how the school will. It could be ultimately if that's the best way, but there could be other suggestions and information, and an architect who bids on it may have a complete different idea for us for you all to look at and consider. The price of this option C1A, the total project cost, again estimated, is 76 million. The estimated reimbursement rate for the state of Connecticut is 37 million. So we're roughly at 50%. The state usually does say that some costs are ineligible at the start, but then once you start going into the project, a lot of times those ineligible costs will become eligible. But you just start off at kind of a best guess of what your ineligibles will be. And then the net construction cost is 38 million. We have here that we did with Ed Aram. I did with Ed Aram a 10-year operating cost savings estimate, and that is the 28 million. And then we have increased a debt service average over 10 years of 2.4 million. So the total pre-K 5 project cost renovated as new for C1A would be $12,400,000. The exact number, $12,427,984. In terms of the grant process, the reason that we are here at this meeting tonight is because we have got to make 3 resolutions in order to apply to the state of Connecticut. And they have to be done in a timely manner, and they also need to be done in order for Rusty and the architects to move ahead with the educational specifications. And so these resolutions are very specific. They're written by the state. We fill in our project name and our governing body's name, and then those are moved and approved by the board to move forward. The vote also could be that the board is voting to move ahead with the C1A option, and that these resolutions allow us to apply to the state grant. If we do not have these resolutions in place, we cannot apply for the grant, which is the deadline of June 30th. They will just not move us forward. But by adopting these resolutions and voting for them does not mean that this is the final design of the school. It also gives the board the opportunity to have more information sessions should they decide to, and to listen to feedback, whatever the board would like to do before it goes to a referendum for the funding. And that part is important to know, because you can always pull the application should something not work out, and the referendum doesn't pass, whatever the case may be, and you're not obligated to the state. But without this grant application and these necessary resolutions and documents, you can't apply. You will not be able to apply again until June 30th of next year, so 2025. And then it takes a year for you before you can even start construction if you're approved. So by getting these resolutions in for this June, getting our project application in, we will not be able to know probably till December or January, first of all, if we've been approved. And then we can't start any construction until July 1 of 2025. If we miss our June 24 deadline, because we don't have these resolutions in place and we can't apply to the grant, now we're looking at July 1 of 26 before any construction can be started. So this process is to get board consent with the input from the board, the building committee, and to move forward with these resolutions. Again, important to note that this does not bind us to anything at this point, but we will not be able to change our mind on the project design once we submit the application for this year. That would take another year. Are there any questions or?
If we want to keep questions too, I can make a motion, and then we could, under discussion, we could do that. Although Kim can't after that point. That's board discussion. Yeah, so I guess if there's any questions specific to Kim before we got in discussion.
Just to clarify, did you say it, once we apply for it, it does bind us to this design or does not?
Well, these resolutions will not bind us to the C1A project. However, once we submit the application for the C1A, we will be bound to that. When we say bound, I don't mean that we're gonna have to do it. Like I said, you can always pull the project, but what it means is you won't be able to change to another design. But the importance of the timeliness here is if these resolutions are passed, but then if there was going to be a different design or a different price tag or something that was going to be the ultimate grant application, a new set of resolutions would have to be, well, let me see, as I'm saying that out loud, no, we would not need a new set of resolutions. So with this, the resolutions can be done because it's really just authorizing the board and the superintendent and the educational specifications. So whatever design goes into the state for June 30th, these resolutions would not change. But time is of the essence because if the design is going to change or would change, these resolutions would not need to be redone. They'd be fine, but that just gives us a whole lot of, we would not be able to meet the June deadline if the design were changed now.
And just so we're
And
clear,
then
when
there's
Kim-
all,
yeah, I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead, Doug.
when Kim says design, based on what she said in the beginning, not that the building looks exactly laid out the way that it does in C1A, but all of the numbers that are behind that, the square footages and the cost. So I think really what she's saying, just to reiterate, is if you changed your mind about wanting to do renovate as new and said, now we want to do a new school instead, then we're kind of upside down with this thing and we're probably missing the timeline. But I've told a few of you this. I shared this with Kim when I went through a process similar to this in my previous district. We had a nice architect, kind of like Rusty, who designed the building. We all thought it was going to look a particular way. When we actually did RFQ for architects, somebody came in with a completely different concept. We all liked it better and we went with that. I'm not saying that's going to happen here. I think it'll probably look pretty much like it is because I don't think there's too many options here with that site. But to Amanda's question, it doesn't lock us into exactly fifth grade is going to be here, or even it's exactly the elevator is going to be there, or the parking is going to be exactly there. But it does lock us into that cost. And as we talked about last week, that square footage and the fact that we're renovating, that we're not doing a new construction. And probably the biggest one is that it's going to all be done unoccupied.
and I think too, and I think Kim and I had discussed it before, but Kim, if I'm correct, so that application process goes in at any time before construction would start, that project, that could be pulled and another state application could go in. So if we had gone out to the public, say, and we found that there was issues with both towns or there was some sort of issue that happened, that could be pulled before construction started, even if a referendum passed, correct?
Oh, sure, it can be pulled at any time, but you will run the risk of being a year or two behind in your project, and you will have lost any kind of expenses that you did for that project. It just wouldn't be reimbursed.
Yep. Okay. I just want to make sure we stated that too.
Lindsay, just for the record, Project C1A is identified in our website, and there's a diagram of it so people can follow through on it. It's dated.
Yep, 100%. It's the second one dated for March 20th, the updated one. The first one, I could get confusing because there's two on there because there was a change, just in between, a little change in between the two, but it is right under the utilization tab under the board. And I think when you go to the district site too, you can get through on that. But if anyone has any questions or wants to see it, it's not going to be the last time that we all look at it. It's not going to be the last time the public looks at it. We have a lot of work to do between now and a plan amendment because this does require a plan amendment to close Brewster. It doesn't require it for Lyman. just because they'll have an elementary school in that town. But it would have to be voted on by both towns. And, we have a lot of work to get that buy-in and really get that out there and explain to everyone that the history and currently what we've done, the fiscal numbers there that, Bob brought up last meeting, that, if those numbers get cleared up, we're looking at a possibility where the budget really isn't impacted, on top of the fact that we'd have even more community input before a referendum. So we've got a lot of talking to the community in between then. And I want people to understand that this grant application, I know Kim said it and I know Doug said it a little differently, but this grant application isn't saying we're overriding anybody. It's saying the building committee and the board got together. There was at the time a unanimous consensus that this plan was the best for Regional District 13, in our opinion, and based on the community forum and history. And now we have to apply for that grant application because we're on that deadline. If we waited a year, we could be looking at major escalation costs. And but we still have a lot of votes and public to be going out to and having those conversations, and we'll figure out the best way to do that in the next month or two. And if for some reason a referendum won't work for June, if we feel like we're under a deadline, we have until November. But it'd be really nice to have something in June. And I don't think any of us really want to do a referendum in the summer because we're losing a lot of our voters during that time, and that's really not fair. People are on vacations. So I think we're on a good course. I think it is tight. I think we have a lot to do in a little time, but nothing we've ever shied away from doing, right? So if there's no more direct questions, we can still have some discussion on it. But I would make a vote to approve the C1A as the facility planning design for the operation of 3 schools in Regional School District 13. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by John. All right, discussion. Is there any more questions, comments, concerns? Feel free to unmute because it's very hard for me to see on my phone who's raising their hand and not. So
I would just like to reiterate what I put in an email earlier about reaching out to the public about what the potential usage is, or selling the buildings, all of that, what would happen with that prior to our vote. So it's something that everyone's aware of, that, it could be happening.
yeah, and I think too, that plan amendment that's right up the alley of the plan amendment. Both towns have to agree to close Brewster at that point. And so I'm sure we'll have a lot of information out there, but your point's well taken. Very important.
Also, I would like to, maybe we need to discuss this further down the road, but what happens if it doesn't pass? What situation we find ourselves in at that point? And, I know this is our long-term plan and having 3 schools, but if it doesn't pass, where does that leave our district? I think that's something that needs to be discussed as well, like a lot. I know I missed some meetings recently, and I don't know if it's been discussed, but I think it's something that is important.
Yep, definitely.
For those that are listening, I'd like to address that if I may. To answer your question, Amanda, I feel that not doing this kind of makes the future of the 5 schools infrastructure wise puts all the schools at grave risk with no funds available to address, in my opinion, major issues. This plan is probably the most logical right now and the most necessary to have a fiscal and infrastructure stability moving forward. And if we don't, to answer your question, I think we're going to find ourselves, and Kim could probably attest to this as well too, we have no capital funds that are going to help us to keep these other schools the way they should be. So yes, it's a plan right now that doesn't necessarily meet everyone's needs, but in order for us to maintain what we feel is going to be the best moving forward, this plan and the long term, as Bob was saying as well too, fiscally it makes the most sense as well too. And if we don't, we're only going to find that the costs are only going to increase even more significantly over the next year. So I just want everyone to know that we've done extensive research, careful consideration of all the costs. We have asked the community for input. And right now we're just looking at long-term cost savings. And it's, I think, been all proven with all of the information that we have been put out there. So I think we have done our due diligence. That's just my opinion.
And if I can just piggyback on what John was saying, that if you don't do anything or say it doesn't pass, your option is not to do anything. The option is then we're probably going to have to look for a bonding referendum to borrow the funds to make these improvements. So it's not a free option to not do anything. We have to make these improvements at our schools, not even improvements, but necessary things. The boilers, everything is at end of life. We ran into this situation with John Lyman of not closing it, but not being allowed to issue bond funding to fix it. And that's not an answer. So something has to be done. If you don't do a bonding issue to fix the infrastructure, and you do put it in your yearly budget, you're not going to be looking at a 2% yearly budget. You're going to be looking at 15 to 20%. Chillers are not cheap. They're $250,000. And we need one at almost all our buildings. So, we have some roofs coming up at Strong's, and I know that's not included in that number there, but with the construction or the renovation of the school, that removes all those capital needs out of our 2% cap that we can save, and we can start saving the money for these things that we then can fix because we have the capital to do it. Right now, we're really behind the 8 ball. I don't know that we'll ever catch up with our 2%. So at least this gets us 3 schools with one state-of-the-art good school, and then we focus our savings on Coggins and Strong to do the necessary infrastructure needs there.
And even looking at that too, keeping 5 schools open will have to drastically affect our programming eventually and our staffing, because in order to maintain this budget, and not even maintain it, be even close on an increase, we're going to have to start taking from programming. It's something that no one that has children or cares about children is going to want to do. And that's something important that we need to get out there, and we need to really talk about and have some honest conversations, because we can fix brick all day long, but do we want it to be at the detriment of the kids and our staff? It just comes down to none of our staff should be wondering if boilers are going to be turning on, or if buildings are going to crumble, or if the roofs are going to be leaking. Yeah, my opinion on that one. But thank you, John. Anyone else? Any discussion? Okay. Once more, any discussion? Okay. Number 4. So I made that motion. John seconded the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstained? Okay, motion passes. Number 5, school construction projects. So these are resolutions that have to be done for the state grant. I'll make a motion on these, and then we can look for a second. Kim, do we need a discussion on each one? We probably do, just because it's a regular motion.
Just do it as a regular motion, please.
Okay. So I make a motion, resolve that the Board of Education of Regional School District 13 authorizes the superintendent on behalf of the Regional School District 13 Board of Education to apply to the Commissioner of Administrative Services and to accept or reject a grant for the renovation expansion of Memorial School. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Lucy. All right. Any discussion on A? Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? All right, that one passes. B, I make a motion resolved that the standing Regional School District 13 Building Committee is hereby established as the building committee with regard to the renovation expansion of Memorial School. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second, Lucy. Any discussion?
Can you just read
I
that?
believe resolved that the standing Regional School District 13 Building Committee is hereby established as the building committee with regard to the renovation expansion of Memorial School.
Thank you.
Now, I just had a question real quick, Kim. This is the resolution to basically state who is that state building committee that is considered the building committee by the state. And that is our current building committee.
Yes, if you don't have a standing committee, you have to appoint one, make one, but because we have a standing one, then that's the standing committee is. You have to have a building committee whenever you do a state constructed project.
Okay.
The building committee has to be of members other than the board as well. And they will review the plans and specs, and they will review any of the construction activities, and they'll be responsible for assuring all the grant is correct to Kim. And so the building committee has a huge responsibility once we get started.
I think that building committee is up for it. All right. I made the motion. There's a second by Lucy. Any other discussion on this one? All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained? All right, that resolution passes. And the last one. I make a motion resolved that the Board of Education of the Regional School District 13 hereby authorizes at least the preparation of schematic drawings and outline specifications for the renovation expansion of Memorial School. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Bob. Any discussion? Kim, this one is just for them to do the educational specs?
Correct.
Okay. And that would be Rusty and Carson. That would be QA&M.
That's right. Yeah. And they have an educational specs template that you have to follow. It's very standard stuff.
Perfect. All right. Any other discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, those resolutions pass. Kim, you are good to go for those with Rusty and Carson. Linda, do you want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second by John?
Sure.
That was John. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Awesome. Thank you all. I hope you have a wonderful night, and I will see you tomorrow night.
Thanks, everyone.